All right, we welcome in Kevin Weeks from the NHL Network. You know him, you love him. Kevin, good to see you. A busy time of the year. How you doing?
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Moles and Katie. Hope you're both doing well. Everything's been good, man. No complaints. Everything is good here. I know you and I spoke offline, so we spend the majority of our time at our place here in Jersey or New York, and we spend some time at our place down in Miami. So more importantly, hopefully everybody's healthy out there and staying as positive as you can here in the U.S. and, of course, around the world, and especially, Moles, as you know, back home in Canada as well.
Yeah, and we're doing this chat. There's still a couple games left in the regular season, but there are a lot of playoff spots have already decided. Kevin, let's get right into it. We're just itching for all of your knowledge and your opinions in that. Who's your top, let's say, 3 or 4 teams that you believe and why they are the Cup favorites going into this year's playoffs?
Sure. Let's go out west because you're from out west and I have family from out west, so nobody's going to say that we don't serve the West, that there's an East Coast bias. So we're going to start, we know well enough to know. So let's start out West for that reason. All right, Katie, here's my thing. I look at Vegas first, just based on the depth of their team, the acquisition of Mark Stone, the re-signing of Mark Stone. You have Pietrangelo on the back end. You have Martinez that's won 2 cups in LA. And of course, Shea Theodore to me has become a star defenseman, Moles, which is your department, but I really like his progression as a player. And all things being equal, Max Pacioretty's been a really good fit there. The top line's cooking. Outstanding owner, one of the best owners in pro sports, and Bill Foley. I love everything about their team, and of course, their fans are amazing. So I love Vegas. I really, really feel similarly about Colorado. They've been a fun team to watch. They're dynamic. Yeah. They're deep. They play with jam too. They're not a soft perimeter-ish team. Their top players play hard, and they'll play through the middle and play on the boards. And Grubauer's become an outstanding goalie too in his own right, and a Vezina Trophy finalist, which I love is the goaltending, obviously, with Vegas too. Don't sleep on St. Louis. Don't sleep on St. Louis. Like now, all of a sudden, I'm happy for our boy Chief out there from Calahoo, Alberta, Moles. As you know, I'm real happy to see how Chief has turned them around. Jordan Binnington looks like himself again. He's right. He's dialed in. It took some time for them to offset losing their captain in Pietrangelo, by the way. But Ryan O'Reilly's leading this team. I just think that they're a team that plays a hard edge game, a power game. They're not going to overwhelm you with breakout skill or game-breaking skill. But when they're playing a team game, they're hard on the boards, they're hard on the forecheck. Plus, they've won. All right, so no disrespect to anybody else out west. Let's swing it east. Hey, look, I love the Sunshine State teams. Maybe I'm partial. Maybe it's because I started my career with the Panthers and played there and played in Tampa. But I think the Sunshine State teams, if you start with Tampa, just respectfully with them being defending Cup champs, I don't think they have any holes. They've got the best goalie in the world. They've got the best defenseman when he's going in the world. And we all know that they can score in droves. And they now know what it takes to win. I love the Panthers. I have to say, the transformation for the Panthers is incredible. Amazing transformation in this 1 year.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped to see that they're good again and that they're relevant in South Florida again, where there's so many amazing options for people. The transformation's been unreal. They now have 4 NHL goalies deep, really, 3-4 goalies deep. Barkov and Huberdeau are 2 of the best stars that people don't give enough credit for. And, listen, Bill Zito and the group have done a great job in transforming the culture in 1 year. And lastly, I got to say, Carolina too, not just because my former teammate in Rod Brindamore, but he might be the best coach in the league that probably doesn't get credit for being the best coach in the league. And one thing I think for a lot of listener viewers that's really cool about RB is everything that coaches demand of players, he lives. Mm-hmm. So, you know what I mean? It's not like he's just saying, hey, be in shape. Hey, do this. Hey, stretch. Hey, be at the rink. Hey, watch tape. Hey, do all these things. He actually lives that way too. And
it's got to be embarrassing when he comes into the weight room after practice and he outlifts and outreps 3/4 of the team. That's got to be demoralizing for some of these world-class athletes.
I saw him after the game the other night waiting to get on the bus. So it was like, whoa, he's a big guy. I mean, that's got to be a pretty good example for every guy on the bench.
You're not going to intimidate him. You're not going to buffalo him. He knows exactly. He's been a player. Yep. He coaches. And that I agree. What he's done and how he has managed the assets that he has, Rob Brindamore, that team, and right now they just refuse to lose. They find ways to win. And like you said, I'll agree. What you mentioned about no real holes. Carolina, there is no soft spots in their lineup, up and down from their goaltending out. Now, people may question the goaltending. Let's get into that and talk about the goaltending around the NHL. Everybody knows you need goaltending, but I guess specifically, Kevin, do you need 2 goaltenders? Can Tampa Bay ride Vasilevsky all the way through 4 rounds? Grubauer, some of these teams, Marc-Andre Fleury. It's a tall task to ask, especially in this condensed season.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, you're so right. So let's start with Vasilevsky being the outlier, right? He's a unicorn that's got a long horn on the top with the twirl on it. He is. How about this? First of all, he wears the great Eric Lindros's number. But second of all, he's built like Eric Lindros and he plays goal. Like, honestly, like he's 6'4", 235, 5% body fat. Like, I mean, just his build alone, just based on his build, he's built for durability. But then his size, his power, his skills, his technical ability, his work ethic, and his approach to the game are really second to none. I said this, and I've got a really good relationship with every goalie coach, but their goalie coach, Franz Jean. We were talking last week, and he said, "Weeks, you play with Lundqvist, right?" I go, "Yeah, of course. We're boys." He goes, "Okay. What do you think? Like, do you see Vasi being a bigger, stronger version of Lundqvist?" I go, "Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And that's scary because we know how great Henrik Lundqvist has been, and we know he's a Hall of Fame lock. So, yeah, Moles, I think, and Katie, Vasilevsky's a real unique one. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's if I'm looking and combing the world for a goalie, I'm looking at somebody that has a lot of the traits that Vasilevsky has. Mm-hmm. However, I agree, Moles. It does take 2, some cases 3, and some organizations maybe 4 deep. Because you said it, this is a condensed schedule, right? We have a condensed schedule, and with that condensed schedule, your recovery windows are shorter. You're not getting as much practice time. You can't heal and recover and regenerate as much. So I think if you are stacked with 4 goalies, look at the Panthers now. All of a sudden, Bob looks like himself again, right? And then Drieger's had an amazing progression. Then all of a sudden, the Dark Knight comes out of Boston College. And he's got his cape on. And not to be outdone, you still have Montembeault, you have DeRoche, and they have Devin Levi, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, don't forget about him. I think everybody kind of does.
Totally. Like, Devin Levi was playing Tier 2 junior in Ottawa in the CJHL, and he's playing the World Juniors. I know he was at
Carleton Place to Northeastern.
Honestly, like, I don't recall. I mean, I think maybe Paul Correa, and maybe the biggie, maybe Eric Lindros when he was playing, I think, for CompuWare Tier 2 as a 15-year-old or whatever before he played World Juniors. But that's rare. That's really rare. So look at the Panthers as an example, Mole. To your question, they're stacked in net right now. Mm-hmm. And there's a real correlation with how good this team is now, and the fact that they can go eeny, meeny, miny, mo on any night for Coach Q and put any goalie in, and the goalie's going to give them a chance to win. So I think, at the very least, Tampa's in a unique situation, but all other teams, I think it could take 2, 3, in some instances, maybe 4.
Well, and Kevin, for yourself, you had a pretty incredible run and experienced what it was like to have a strong partner with Arturs Irbe in the playoffs in 2002. Talk a little bit about just that experience, because I think every fan loves to hear about what it's like for any player, but for a goaltender to be in those do or die games, going to a Stanley Cup final, I mean, it has to be something like nothing else.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you. Here's something that's really interesting, and it's no discredit to anything. When I was coming up in the Panthers organization and I saw a lot of the veteran players that they had there, remember, keep in mind, that was an expansion team. So when you think of all the veteran players, all the character that they had, an expansion team in 93. I went to my first training camp in 93, and then seeing that group, being around that group, getting the odd recall and being around those players, the work ethic, I could still hear the Cybex bikes whizzing. Okay. I could hear voo, 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 voo. Moles, you know what I'm talking about. 800, 1200 RPM, 15, 21.
I used to break out in hives when I went anywhere near one of those bikes. I was old school.
Honestly, right? So I'm thinking of like this kind of amazing work ethic combination of old school players that we had there at that time in that organization. And while a lot of the world was kind of, trying to sandbag, oh, it's the Southeast, it's the South, what's hockey going to do, blah, blah, blah. Listen, they went to the Stanley Cup in 96. So I saw that as a real young person and got a chance to see what that looked like. And literally, Katie, to your question, I remember when I first got traded to Carolina and I walked in the room, okay? So, I was probably 205 at the time. I've got an 8-pack. I'm pretty chiseled. I'm looking at Rod Brindamore. He's hand carved out of stone. I'm looking at Brett Hedekin. I'm looking at Ron Francis, Sammy Kapanen. Yeah. Like literally Artur Zerbe, my goalie partner, this whole team, like everybody was just into shape, cared, practiced hard. Our practices were intense. And Jimmy Rutherford, the great Jimmy Rutherford, was our GM. Paul Maurice, like everything was just in place. Mm-hmm. And externally, we had the same chatter that people used to say about the Panthers. Well, you're in the South. How are you going to be a good team? And when you saw the work ethic and the camaraderie of that group, honestly, like I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. Right when the playoffs started or before the playoffs, Coach Maurice came to me and goes, listen, Archie's our guy, but I'm not going to hesitate to put you in, be ready. And it gave me a jolt of confidence and just seeing these veteran players that we had that were so committed. It was no surprise that we ended up toppling Jersey in the first round, even though they were the standard of the league and certainly the standard of the East. And then, of course, beating Montreal in the second round, then beating my hometown team in Toronto to eliminate them, which is amazing. And then going all the way to the Cup final against that Hall of Fame Detroit team that had, I think, 10 Hall of Famers on that team. So it was a special time. I think the biggest thing for the viewers is amazing things can happen. And Moles, you know this yourself. Amazing things can happen when you have a selfless group and everybody really cares about each other. And they care about being pros and going to battle with each other. Amazing things can happen. You're seeing that with the Panthers this year.
And to lead what you were talking about when you turn pro, and especially when you got the Carolina, and I'm sure some of the other teams and that about the conditioning and the commitment and that. I like to tell the story. I remember early on in my career, I was with the Quebec Nordiques, and I thought I was in shape, but we had a veteran team. Sure. We go out to Edmonton, and a specific story. We go out to Edmonton, and we were playing well. We had the Stastny brothers and Michel Goulet, Dale Hunter, and we're riding along. We're a pretty good team, and my family's all there from Red Deer, and we were up 5-1. Okay. In Edmonton, and we lost 11-6. So I come out of the locker room, and the reason I tell this story is
that's crazy.
My mother's there; she's got her hair done, beehive, and she's crying. But I came out. Yeah. I came out of that locker room. You remember back at the old Coliseum in Edmonton? Yeah. I had a beer in one hand. I had a cigarette in the other hand. The game was over. I showered or whatever. And I'm walking out. I'm going to look for my parents, and I look down to the right. And I saw Paul Coffey
riding the bike,
and Mark Messier was there riding the bike. And I was standing there looking at my Molson going, you know what? I think I've learned something today. And that's the reason why they were champions and Hall of Famers and that. So that leads me into my question for you. I get it mixed up, Weeksy. It was at 7 teams in 11 years, or was it 11 teams in 7 years? Which I know you and I had a lot of stops or whatever, but maybe a couple of quick stories of different stops that you made, sure, and some of the things that stick in your mind about the professional, being a professional, and some of the guys that it maybe influenced your career.
Yeah. So I would, I'll revisit the Panthers time, right? Like they're stacked in that, they had Beezer and Fitzy. And then they had some other guys, and the late Brian Murray, he told me, he said, look, you got to play in the American League out of junior, play a lot, be a number one, which I did. And then he goes, you got to go to the IHL. There's older players that are there. There's old NHL players. you got to play with some of those guys. Like I played with your guy, Paul Lawless, like a lot of these other guys in the eye. So as he said, you got to go to the eye and dominate, which I did. I was IHL goalie of the year. And then of course I had my contract impasse with the Panthers, but I'll always be grateful to them just because they gave me my chance and they helped me develop. Yeah. The Panthers helped me develop as a young goalie. They gave me games in the minors and resource. And Billy Smith, as you know, is our goalie coach. And he really helped me with my mentality a lot. But one of the things that was really cool about being down there is seeing the level of focus from a lot of you players, especially the older guys, where the beach was there, South Beach was there, you know, the bars were there, the restaurants were there, the whole scene, the vibe. South Florida is one of the best places on planet Earth. But the focus that a lot of you older players had on the task, on coming to battle every day, practice hard every day, be team players every day, that's never lost on me, right? So that was kind of the Florida piece. Playing in Van briefly, what was cool about that is you just mentioned Messier. I got a chance to play with Mark Messier and see the way Mess lived, trained, ate, slept, how good he was to some of us as young players. You know, dinnered with him, picking his brain, asking him questions about Edmonton, like the story you just shared, which is really cool. My time with the Islanders was pretty interesting because we had this goalie who was 20 down at the other end by the name of Roberto Luongo. And I started sizzling kind of once I was there. I started getting my footing in the NHL and starting to find my game, played some really good games. And in practice, I'm looking down. This guy had just turned 20. He's stopping everything and he's making it look easy. And I was just like, who is this alien? Like this guy's unreal. Like I'm literally bouncing from shot to shot, exerting so much energy. And he was like routine, glove safe, thank you. Blocker safe, glove safe, thank you. And it was a real kind of aha moment, as you were saying, and seeing somebody that was 4 years younger than I was, we shared a birthday, same birthday, and seeing how far his game had come based on the butterfly style and being coached by Francois Lair and them in Quebec, in the province of Quebec. So that was interesting. And then Tampa was really cool because we had all these, you know, young superstar players, Brad Richards, Vinny Lecavalier, you know, the whole rest of them, right? But I'll tell you a quick story about that in Tampa that was interesting for a lot of viewers. One day we're in practice, one day after a game, don't worry, it's PG. We're in the shower and Marty St. Louis looks at me, he's like, you know, Week C, you know, I could do more to help the team, you know, I could do more to help the team Week C, you know. And I said to him, like, I go, Marty, I know how good you are. I played against you in the eye. You're in Cleveland, you in Perrin. I know how good you are. I go tell Ledsy, go tell our coach. So he went and told him, and I said, if you accept bleep, you're going to get bleep. So go and talk to the coach. And I had Ludsy in the minors, right, in the IHL. So I go talk to him. So next thing you know, he goes and talks to him. 2 years later, he's NHL MVP. Yeah. And moral of the story is he worked his way. He believed in himself and had that conviction and belief in himself. And now he's a Hall of Famer. So those are a few of the many that I could tell. But that Marty St. Louis one, I think, especially at a time now when so many of us are, you know, we're impacted by the challenges with the pandemic and restrictions and uncertainty of what your career or life might look like. Marty St. Louis is a really good takeaway for everybody.
And Marty St. Louis actually was my favorite player growing up.
Oh,
I love, yeah.
Oh,
you know,
cool.
the first NHL jersey I got was the old school Tampa Bay St. Louis jersey, and I loved him because I'm a small huggy player. I loved that he was that small guy. Nobody really knew who he was, just working his way up. So yeah, I love hearing that story because it's so spot on. But
a coincidence, yeah.
For yourself, like Randy, you know, after you finished your playing career, you decided to make that jump into broadcasting. But different than Randy, you know, instead of sticking with maybe going to a specific team, you decided, you know, to go that NHL Network route. Just how did that come about and what made you sort of choose that path? Because I know there's a lot of options in broadcasting.
Yeah, I would say this. I mean, I'm sure Moles could attest to this too, is along the way when you play, we knew who the really good media people were, the people that really worked, that loved the game, that cared about it, that lived it. And like Mo's just talking about, you know, coming out to see his mom post game and see his family, that's the same thing for me, right? Like coming out, I see my mom, my sister is quite younger than me, see my younger sister and buddies I grew up with when I had 5 cents in my pocket going to a convenience store and things of that nature. And it was never lost on me the people that were really respectful and that really did a good job, either in print or radio or TV. And as you can see, we're all three of us, we're sociable people. And my parents are that way too. And literally, I'll tell you how this started. It was at the end of my second year, which turned out to be my last year in Jersey. We're in Barbados. I'm visiting family. We're on a boat, literally. And I get a phone call, and it's Andre Trefilov. You'd remember the name, Moles. And I played with him in Detroit in the minors. So he calls me. He's like, Wixie, Trefi, you want Cabrasha? 2.5 million, 2.5. He hangs up the phone. He calls me again. Wixie, Trefi, you want Cabrasha? I give you 2 million, 2 million. Hangs up the phone. He calls me again. Wixie, you want Cabrasha? 1.5. So as you could see, this is a de-escalating negotiation, right? And it was to go and play in Akbars for Akbars in the KHL. And then he ends up with at $1 million. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to stay in the NHL. I'm going to play whatever. I'll back up somewhere else or whatever. I'll go back to Jersey. And as fate would have it, I swear to God, all of a sudden, I get a call from Hockey Night in Canada, from Shirley Najak, who was our exec producer, one of the best hockey producers in the business. He was running it, and he called me. He's like, hey, man, I want to express interest. I don't know if you're continuing to play. It's almost like he knew something I didn't. And then I got a call from Mark Jacobson from the NHL Network. I did 4 shows for them at the previous playoffs, and he expressed interest. And literally from there, the phone started ringing. MSG New York, NBC, and I literally had to figure this out. So I was saying, okay, where can I get the most airtime to improve, to try to really hit a stride and really be really good at this? Mm-hmm. And how can I get my compensation up to a level which is going to justify me leaving playing? That was kind of the balance, right? So literally, Katie, to your question, I decided on the NHL Network and CBC Hockey Night in Canada. And I swear to God, Monday night on the air, Tuesday night on the air, Wednesday night on the air, Thursday night in the air, Friday fly to Moles's neck of the woods, fly to Alberta or BC or wherever the West Coast.
Hockey Night in Canada.
Hockey Night in Canada. Do the late game, the West Coast game.
Yeah.
Do after hours with Scotty Oak. Get to the airport in the morning, fly all the way back by coastal to Toronto, and do it all over again. And I just really wanted to learn the craft, and I wanted to respect the craft like I did playing. You know, I wanted to respect this side of the business as much as I did playing. So that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, and the old saying, if you think you've improved and there's nothing else to learn, then you're going down a wrong trail. That's for sure. You got to keep putting in the work. We see you made hockey history as being the first Black analyst. You've paved the way for so many young people, and what you've done and leading the way with diversity and the strides that the NHL has made. How proud of you to be involved, not only in the very infancy of this and to where it's going right now and where the possibilities are, because we're never done. We always have to work in all aspects. And that, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, it's pretty interesting, Moles. Thank you for that. I would say this, like, for those of you that live in South Florida, for example, you get to see and breathe and live diversity, right? So whether you're in Kendall, whether you're in Brickell, you're in Sunrise, you're South Beach, you're, Edgewater, by our place, no matter where you are, you get to see and feel that kind of vibrancy. And it just only enhances your kind of day-to-day life. Like you get this cross-cultural fluency. And I was lucky growing up in Toronto. And then specifically when we moved to Scarborough, where a lot of my minor hockey teammates their parents were Irish, Greek, Jewish, Russian, Caribbean, Italian, Portuguese, you name it. So I kind of grew up with that. And not everybody can control where you grow up and what your environment looks like. So luckily for me, I had that, and that helped shape me a lot. But in saying that, from a hockey standpoint, I've always believed, and I can tell you this, both my parents came from Barbados and emigrated to Canada. My dad can't skate. He's never put skates on, but he loves hockey more than anyone. When I say loves, I mean loves hockey. And even at times, if the game at times didn't feel like it loved me back, or my dad loves, like, he's literally at my old minor hockey arena every Friday to this day, just hanging, just seeing kids, just seeing parents, just talking to them. And because, unless you played a semblance of hockey, as parents, you don't really know what to do with your kids. Like, you bring them to the rink, but you don't really understand. You know what I mean? Like, do you need power skating? Do you need hockey school? Do you need both? Like, do you play
advisor?
Exactly, like AA, single A, triple A, navigating all that kind of stuff. And in his way, that's kind of his way of giving back. So I think for me, I learned that from my parents. And, I had my hockey school back home, which is now taken over by another gentleman, CJ Bowlers. who does an amazing job. But with that hockey school, Moles, we had the likes of Trevor Daly, P.K. Subban, the Chris Stewart, Anthony Stewart, all these different kids that came through the hockey school.
Correct.
And I think a big part of that is wanting to see people enjoy our sport. Like, we all know we're fortunate enough to be in our sport and to be in the league and do what we do, but we know our sport is great enough for anybody to enjoy. It's that good. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's the way Italians feel about like clothing and cars, Ferraris and Lambos and, you know, whatever, and food. It's like, they know it's on par with the best. And that's how we feel about our sport. So I like to see more young girls and boys from different denominations and more young people from different denominations getting a chance to enjoy it as diehard fans, casual, girls hockey, you know, U.S. Olympian, Canadian Olympic hockey players, female, male, whatever the case may be. And I'm happy to see that now. And you're right, Moles, it's never over. But I think, you know, Moles, if you think back, right, like it wasn't that long ago in 04, 05 that our league revenues were like 2 million, right? 2 billion, excuse me, 2 billion, 2.25 billion. And I kept saying at the time, like, grow the sport, let more people love it, let more people play it.
Yeah.
And now it's at 5 billion, our league revenues in a regular year.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see our sport get to like 8 and 10 billion, because I really think it's great enough for everybody, people that look like me and people that don't. So I think it's that good of a sport. I really do. I think it's important.
Can't disagree with that. And I was fortunate enough to cover the NWHL, which was exciting to have on NBC Sports for the first time. And it's just little things like that, small steps, but all steps that are going in the right direction. And the appreciation from the female players of that league to have a national stage to play on, to be able to now increase their salary caps heading into the next season.
Totally.
It's awesome.
No, it's awesome. Listen, long before advocacy or these types of initiatives were thought of as being cool, like Jana Hefford, I used to have Jana Hefford shoot on me back home at times, and we had her join us for our women's roundtable. She's fantastic. That was awesome. So I knew Cassie Campbell when Cassie was young. The great Angela James as well. I would see Angela back home. I knew Angela. Vicky Sanahara, all these players, all these amazing female players. And I'm telling you, like, I had from Dustin Penner to the Mike Camilleri, like I can go up and down the name of shooters that I had with my goalie coach, Sudsy, who's Anaheim's goalie coach. And a lot of times we'd be like, all right, no, Jana's a little bit more dialed in and she can place it a little more accurately. Let's get her to shoot. So I'm not trying to salt out any of the other guys. I just got to be real. So that's kind of the thing where, you've seen, I remember at times where for girls hockey specifically, a lot of girls didn't have a dedicated league. Like they'd have to play on boys teams. And
I did growing up. Right.
Or you'd have to then, if you did play with girls, it wasn't like league game competition. It was kind of like a tournament or these all-star teams.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that kind of equalizing. And look, no matter where, I look at myself as an example, right? I remember when I first used to start going out west, Moles, you can plug your ears for this, but when I used to first start going out west to do games, a lot of people were like, what's he doing out here? He's not from the West. Why is he out here? Why are they bringing this guy from the East out here to do games in the West? I'm like, it's the same puck, the same ice, the same NHL. Like, what are we talking about? But as fate would have it, my spouse and her family, they're from Whitehorse, Alberta, and Indiana. And they grew up in Whitehorse, then / Alberta. So now I've got my unofficial Western passport. So it just goes to show the way things in the world can change. Do you know what I mean? So now I'm out there, I'm at Stampede, I'm hanging out. Like it's so funny to see just how the world changes, when we're open-minded and we're open to possibilities, right?
Absolutely. Kevin, it's been great. I know you're busy. We got to let you go.
All good.
We enjoy the stories and you do such a great job with the NHL Network. And as I mentioned as well, one of the true leaders of the NHL's emphasis on diversity in our sport, in our league. And we can't thank you enough for being taking on that leadership role. And we wish you all the luck. And it's going to be an exciting playoffs. We'll be tuning in, and maybe down the line we'll tune in again and have you on, and maybe do a little bit of the recap of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Thank you both so much, Katie. Great to finally speak with you. Keep up the amazing work, Moles. You're always crushing it, so keep crushing it. a great listen and a great watch for both of you and the whole broadcast. Really, it's been fun. Nice to see Chick down there. Nice to see Jovo back in with it as well, with his crew, brother Jovo. But all things being equal, what's really cool to see is the Panthers are back on the map. And it's great to see hockey in Florida in general, in the state, in the Sunshine State, but down there in South Florida, as vibrant as it is right now, and it's only going to continue getting better. So I'm pumped to see that. I look forward to the playoffs, and maybe I'll see you all sooner rather than later, being that we're vaccinated now. So maybe we'll see you down there.
Yeah, that's right. Let us know when you're in Miami.
Well, and as a Florida Panther alumni, you're always welcome. The only problem is because over the last 20 some years, your dues have piled up, and now, they've increased to whatever to be a full-fledged Florida Panther alumni.
Okay, thanks, no worries.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for joining us.
That's a free dinner. Thanks for having me.